So today I'll talk about the two Indian Puzzle Championship puzzles I wrote this year. This is a word Nurikabe, and like many word and logic hybrids, one of the first steps you should try to do mentally or otherwise is try to map the word space onto things in the grid. In this case, there are some unique letters you can find. For instance, this is the only C, and we have a C in the puzzle, so the largest Indian state, these are all Indian state names if you didn't know, is going to be there. We need to find an N and D. There are a few options for the N at this moment, and there's just one option for the D, so I'll mark that in. What you'll notice is it's in the middle of a string, so in this case we can also say that it's going to bend like this somehow. We don't yet know anything more about it. We've got the P that's going to be a start or end of a state name. That's got to be this one. We can mark that it's 4 total in length. One of the oddities you'll often look for in word lists is particularly short words. Goa is here. It's a memorable place for me in India. It's where I won the World Sudoku Championship several years ago. And with no G or O as options, it has to be this A. We're now left with 4 unmapped letters, 3 that are I's and an N. So looking at the list, it's not Bihar. This is going to be the N, so it's the end of a state name. It could go a bunch of ways. It's not a branch, so less useful. But now if these 3 I's, what we see is they're all internal. So it is the case that we can, for instance, up here mark that it has to do a branch, and shading normal Nurikabe rules for the ocean, we actually get to the fact that what we need is an I that is the second letter or second to last letter of a word. So this one is out for the top left. And we still don't immediately know the words it's coming in, but if we just play with Nurikabe rules for a while, we get to this state which says that we need a 5-letter word total. So we know that answer. Put that in. We're still let's keep the mindset that we have I's that are internal I's. We can mark that this clue over here needs to do some bending. And that helps you recognize the limitations in this space, that the remaining letters for this state name can't come down, they have to come across, or they just won't fit in. And we can get some more progress like this. Force that island down and over. And we know Goa is in this little corner. It's going to be a pretty efficiently tucked away space. It's continuing to sort of build out islands. Now we want to come back. We know that the ocean needs a path to connect to itself, so that space is going to be filled. And with Odisha, we had 2 options, which is the O is over here, the O is over there. The thing is, there are 4 total island cells after the D, and there's just not room to have the Isha part of it to the left, so we can make that kind of marking. That confirms for us that the I is the 3rd letter from some end, so it can't be from Mizoram, it's got to be Tripura. One thing you'll want to ask yourself, and this is typical actually of most Nurikabe, is when you're near a border and you place an island a certain kind of way, can you actually deal with the potential black cells that would form a clue? I guess let me just sort of draw what I mean. There's an option for this island which goes like this, but it actually shades in a lot of ocean around, requiring that a cell like this is an island. And if you think about it, it's not long enough to be from this space, so you'd have to have some sort of wrap like this, but what you're requiring, since this is on an edge, is to actually close off the edge with the connection to an internal island. And so often along the edges, you can't really cut back in unless you have sufficient clues nearby to allow another island to sneak around and not isolate the ocean. So An intuition in a Nurikabe like this is often that an island like this Tripura on the left side has to be space efficient. And so the first thing you'll notice is that cell is used. We'd even intuit generally that it would also come down to here, but what we see from this word we can now place some of, it's got to come to the left and down. And so it is fully given like this. Do some more extensions. So one trick with these puzzles is you get to start writing words backwards and you'll confuse yourself with what you've done or not. Now you have a different kind of logic, but an interesting one maybe, is these islands are snake-shaped in general. And so specifically at this point, we now have a case if it comes down, it's going to be forced to go across and across to not isolate ocean here. But that's going to then, since that finishes the word, shade two ocean cells above it, finish a 2x2 block. And so the consequence is that we know that it at least has to come to the right one more cell. That now interacts with the island beneath. To do this, we can put in the rest of that word. Get to a slightly tricky finish. We have just this left to place. It has 7 total letters. It needs to have an island cell here. It certainly needs to have an island cell there. And it's going to need to basically this cell, this square, and this square collectively want island cells. And so the most efficient way to get to them is those two cells. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we need to use the last two to connect them. You can hopefully see that this is the only snake that can fill all of this space and basically keep the oceans from violating the rules in the different parts. And so we will finish the puzzle by writing in the last of these states. I hope you enjoyed this word logic challenge for a change. We don't do a lot of word logic challenges. The other puzzle from the Indian Puzzle Championship that I wrote was a Cipher TomTom. And it actually has maybe 2 themes going for it. The first is, with this variation, I often have used an arbitrary ordering of the clues, the A through F digits that are the set digits to use, that you can sometimes make use of those inequalities in the grid. In this case, the puzzle uses the other 4 digits, G, H, I, and J, so there's not any meaning to these except you need to find a set of clues that can use only other digits to fulfill themselves. And that's a little tricky or neat. And the second mini theme is that we have products that have a lot of repeated digits in them within this privilege set. And so here you can actually maybe want to use intuition. Certain kinds of products you might think, for instance, ends in 0, 0 is a consistent kind of product. You can get in a TomTom with 2 5s. What we'll do is a slower logical path of the set of ways I felt people would work through this. The first is to observe that a double-digit sum, either of these, using single-digit numbers, is going to have a 1 as that digit. There's no leading zeros in this puzzle, so we get G assigned as 1 pretty quickly. We have a case in this corner. If you know your 3-digit multiples that start with 1 pretty well, the H could be a 0 or a 4, but knowing it's a starting digit, it quickly can be resolved to be a 4. And this one over here is 441. You may not already know this product, but it's a pretty cool product, and the sort of pairing of these two, and the puzzle was written around the fact these existed, that 441 is 49 times 9, or 3 squared times 7 squared, however you want to view that. 7 is a privileged digit that you need to use 2 7s to get a product of 49 in a group, and so the remaining factor of 9 is there, and so we've solved for 2 of the digits. I guess you can, strictly speaking, say F is 9, and we don't yet know which of D or E is 7, but we've got a start to what's going on here. We got h to be a 4, so now we have a 4 something something x that's going to have a unique distribution. This is finally where we can get, you can do this a bunch of ways, but 400 is the only one that's left to work, and 400 is going to interact with I, and we don't know I at all, but we're going to have some other multiple that uses that. So what to do next? The first thing I observe, and you can mark this either in the rows or in the columns, is that to get products that end in 100, 0, 0, you need to have 2 5s within that group. Because we've already filled in this corner, where does a 5 go in the bottom row? It's not in this column, this column, this column. A 5 must be there. And up here, a 5 must be there. So we get 5, 6 as additional digits in the puzzle. We have an I minus clue up here, so we can't really say too much about this at the moment. But what we can do is think about specifically the fact we have some critical divisions, and divisions themselves are pretty hard clues to use. They can't be very big numbers because we don't have the digit 1 to use within this puzzle. So I have a suspicion that, for instance, with h equals 4, that you can get to the fact that 2 and 8 have to be within this grid, and that actually now we'll complete our digit set. So 2, 8 is in this space. In this column is left 2, 6, and 8. There's only one way those divide, and that's the 2 and the 6 together, and that division is 3. And so we now sort of check everything we're doing to say I equals 3. We've now marked all 10 digits, which is good confirmation we're doing the right thing. We get this sort of checksum here, which is 5 out of 8 is 3 minus. That's also correct. So let's deal with the 144 while we're here. It's not going to have a product of 7 in it, so the 7 in the first column is in the space. It's got a 1 minus clue in the group, so we have an 8. That leaves the other 2 numbers in the space is 9 and 2. The remaining product that we need to get there is from 18 into 144 is an 8, so we'll put that in. We have GI as 13 plus. Well, what is left is 13 plus. We don't have 9, 4 in this puzzle. We did have 8, 5, but we used it, so 7, 6 is what's left. We now have potentially a 2 or 9 here. That's going to give, coming up, a 5 or a 6. But we've used the 5, so this must be a 6. That makes that a 9. That makes this a 2. Makes that a 9. This is 300 now finally, so we're going to go through a game again with a lot of products where we're going to have a multiple like 7 dodge it. So in this row, this is the only spot a 7 can go in, so that leaves a 2 in the spot. A 2 in the spot leaves a necessary product of 6 there. We have a 6 below, so we can quickly steer all those digits in the grid. We're at a 3 minus that needs to have a 9 with a 7. The 7 steers the 7 nearby. This is a kind of place where my notes help. I just quickly look and see, well, I have that 6 now, so I can fill in the rest. I need a 9, I need an 8. This is 2, 5 in some order, and to finish out to get to 400, this is 8, 5 in some order. We have an 8, so we get this, 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 and you are done with that cipher. And hopefully you enjoyed these competition puzzles, or through this walkthrough at least learned something about how to solve these tricky puzzles that use a little bit of letters with a little bit of logic. And we'll see you next time.